This is Made in America with Neil Asbury and Rich Rothman.
A very big welcome to you today. I'm Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. So, Rich, big news this week. The Supreme Court has handed President Biden and his administration the biggest blow yet to the federal vaccine mandate for businesses. And OSHA, the federal agency that's responsible for making our workplaces safe, and as a U.S. manufacturer myself, having several hundred people employed in manufacturing and having all the machinery and so forth to form metals and to mold plastics and the assembly operations and so forth, we deal with OSHA all the time. And typically, they want to make sure that, the machines and the safety of those machines and how your employees are interacting with those machines and the things that they have, the equipment that they have, are protecting them. And as such, thank God, we have almost no accidents. And, the U.S. manufacturing has come a long, long way. And just the safety of the workplace has come a long, long way. So the Biden administration wanted to take OSHA, which has a very, very different charter and what they have historically done, and turned them into the mandate police. And actually, it was even more than that. It was actually taking the business owners, anybody with more than 100 employees, and turning them into the mandate police. And then the people who would come in and find you and fine you would be OSHA, and the penalties were like what, $14,000.
It got ridiculous.
I mean, it got ridiculous.
Pretty expensive.
So anyway, Supreme Court said no, can't do that, and so
6-3.
And imagine, which is pretty amazing, and then imagine about all the people that would have been out of work. A lot. 30% of Americans.
A lot of people got out of work as a result. There are going to be some lawsuits over this, as a matter of fact.
So anyway, that's not going forward. But then you do hear a lot about American workplace and companies that can't find employees. And there's this, several million people that have just not rejoined the workplace, and people are wondering, where are these folks? We need them. Just go anywhere in this country and look at the help wanted signs everywhere. There's a deficit of labor in this country, and we see it with the supply chain right now. Look at all the stores that have empty shelves. You see all the time, Rich.
Well, we live in very, very strange times as it relates to a relationship between an employee and an employer. If you think about the last 2 years, we paid people to stay home. So that's one whole category of scenario that we created. Then we told people, well, if you're sick, you can't come back to work. As a matter of fact, if you don't have the vaccination, you're not going to come back to work because we're telling you that there's a mandate and you have to blah, 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 and so forth and stay home. So there's another confusion that's out there. We have set up so many conflicting ideas, thoughts, taxes, mandates, rules, regulations, just plain, prejudice against those who are not vaccinated versus those who are vaccinated, that we have, I think, really turned the marketplace for jobs upside down. So there's a lot of confusion. One, people don't want to come back to work to get paid to stay at home. We know that. And then two, well, I'm not well, and so I got to stay home because nobody wants me in the office. I had laryngitis. I didn't have COVID. I had laryngitis, and it was freaking everybody out. So I can't go to work. I got to stay home. So I stayed home till basically it went away. But so we're in a place right now, Neil. Can you remember in any time, you've been in business a long time, I've been in business for over 30 some odd years. Can you remember any time like this, which is going to lead to our guest, because people are starting to do different things? But can you? I can't remember any scenario like this where we said, no, we're going to pay you to stay home. We'll give you, $20,000 a year. We're going to give you $24,000 a year to stay home. That's really weird.
Well, apparently what's been happening
and frightening.
What's been happening is some people have been staying home and using that time, and I guess the government assistance in order to prepare and to learn to start their own businesses. It's quite a fascinating topic about where's this great resignation of people who are not coming back to the workforce. What are they doing? A lot of them are starting businesses, believe it or not. We're very pleased to welcome our first guest, Hare, who is from Launchpeer, which is a startup incubator company that helps entrepreneurs, small businesses, those folks sitting around the kitchen table thinking about what they're going to do and their dreams and building on those dreams. They help build companies, launch companies, and ultimately fund companies. Very fascinating thing, helping our entrepreneurs, very important. Jake, welcome to Made in America.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So tell us, I mean, we're hearing that about a third of these folks that have resigned and have left the workforce are actually starting their own businesses. And hey, look, they want to be their own bosses. They want to build their American dreams. And 60% of these folks have said that they've used the lockdown to learn about starting a business and running a business. I mean, is this really true?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've seen over about the last year and a half a huge uptick in people, first of all, just wanting to start a business in general. And I think that kind of ties back to, you know, when you're looking at the economy right now, and I know you guys talk about a lot about this, you know, things are really uncertain, whether it's just for general consumers or for businesses. If you're looking at the landscape and you're thinking to yourself, maybe in the past, like, oh, it's risky to start a business, I'm not sure if I should do that. Well, today it's pretty risky to just work at a job in general. You don't know what's going to happen with your employer, what regulations are going to come down and cause them to have to let people go. You don't know really how safe your job is. The gap between the riskiness of starting a business and, you know, maybe the riskiness in staying at your job isn't as far as, you know, it isn't as big a gap as it used to be. You know, but there was a study done recently that about 30% of people who are in that Great Resignation group are deciding to start their own businesses. And I think a big part of that, and something that we heard a lot from people who are considering joining our program, was related to if you're working from home, you're working remote, the chances are you have quite a bit more free time when your boss isn't sitting there looking over your shoulder. So in terms of the time factor, it gives you a lot more time to consider doing the research, you know, find the mentors, get the education that you need to start a business, when maybe before that just wasn't a possibility.
You know, I find it, I think you're right. I find it a very, very interesting. This is a very telling statement from this article that you were talking about, Neil. And it says, according to the U.S. Labor Department, 4 million people handed in their letters of resignation in the month of April alone. I mean, 4 million people said, I've had enough. And they walked out. And they walked out for, you know, a plethora of reasons. And you know, Jake is right. You know, they want better pay and benefits. I think that's a good one. And that's a good thing. Maybe this is the time to do it. You know, focus on health. Everyone's thinking about that right now, that's for sure. Here's a good one, and I think this is where a lot of entrepreneurs come in. Find a job that you're more passionate about. Jake, you know, you deal with entrepreneurs, and you're an entrepreneur. If you don't have passion for what you're thinking about, and what you think you can create, then you can't do it. I mean, an entrepreneur has to 100% believe in what they're dreaming of and what they want to create, and they got to be passionate about it. So I guess we have a lot of passionate people in this country, Jake.
Yeah, which is a great thing. You know, if you look back at some of the past economic downturns or times of uncertainty, some of the best businesses that are household names today have been created from those. If you look at some of the startups today that are household names, a lot of them were started around 2008, 2009. Now, look, should we hope for things like that to happen? Of course not. But entrepreneurs, the people who are passionate about solving a problem, if you give them the opportunity to do that, or force that opportunity upon them because of what's happening right now, sometimes good things can happen. And to talk about passion, building a startup is really hard, you know, and I think most people have some idea of that. I don't think you really have an understanding of that until you try to do it. But if you don't have that passion for what you're doing, then it makes everything around your life much more difficult. And if you're the kind of person who's been working at a job, you know, kind of just basically dreading Sunday nights because you don't want to go to work on Mondays, or all week you're looking forward to Friday afternoon because then you get to leave work, those are prime examples of people who need to go and find their passion. And it looks like apparently a large portion of the people who are deciding to go find their passion are doing that through going and starting their own business, which I think is a great thing.
Yeah, so it is fascinating, though, what you said, and it's just something that came up in this discussion, is that people are working from home, and they have a lot more time on their hands. Now, I don't think their bosses would like to know that, But it is, I guess, true that, I mean, if you're at home and you're doing your job, no one's looking over your shoulder and what else you're doing. And I guess starting a business is what a lot of people
No, you know
are
what
doing.
it does? It gives you peripheral vision. Think about that. It gives you the idea that you can look left and right a little bit. I don't mean politically, just left and right. And you see things differently than when you're sitting in a very structured office, in your office or in your cubicle, or wherever you're working, or just sitting in a cafeteria someplace or whatever. It's a very structured day. Now you have latitude to think and do things. And I think that's where, Jake interacts with people, because you're in the intellectual thinking, passionate process, and he helps facilitate that. This is a great time for someone to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
Jake, unfortunately,
it's easy when you're going into the office every day to just go through the motions. You walk in the office,
That's my point.
Have a cup of coffee, sit down at your computer, talk to your coworker friends. You all look at the clock and wait for lunch to come, and then you go to lunch, and then you get back and you do some work, and you're waiting for the end of the day. You can kind of get caught in that cycle. When that cycle's gone, when your ability to just go through the motions is kind of, you cut ties from that, it really kind of wakes people up to think like, well, is this really what I want? When all of those external factors are removed, when going through the motions is not a possibility, and now I'm sitting at home trying to do this work, and now it's purely about the work. Well, wow, I really don't like this. Maybe I should go find something else to do.
Hey, Jake, we're going to have to end it there. Jake Hare, who's an entrepreneur himself and the CEO of Launchpeer, which is a startup incubator. He helps companies or entrepreneurs build business plans, come up with their ideas, helps them launch them and fund them. A really, really great thing that we need in this country, more entrepreneurs. We can't have enough. Jake, thanks for being on the show.
Awesome. Thank you both.
Coming up, Dr. Ruff and I still got a lot more to go about. There is so much going on. Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. So, Rich, we're going to move on to inflation. I mean, inflation grew at a whopping 7%.
Bad.
Like really bad. What's
bad?
Like
not
bad,
good news.
Like since 1982, and
40 years. It's worse than in 40 years.
That was the hangover from the Carter years, by the way.
It's what put Reagan in office.
That's what put Reagan in office. Yeah. And isn't it any wonder that you got Joe Biden in office right now, and you're seeing Jimmy
how ironic
Carter,
how history repeats itself. If only we learned something from this.
Isn't that the case? Well, let's see if we can learn something from Brian Deese, who is the Biden Economic Council director. I mean, now he's the director. Let's listen to Brian.
We've seen a number of unanticipated outcomes. When it comes to prices, what we have said consistently, focused consistently, is that this is a global phenomenon. It is connected to the pandemic. Certainly, the supply chain challenges that have evolved over the course of time through the Delta variant and over the course of the fall.
So, Rich, do you have any clue what he said?
I haven't got a clue. He doesn't have a clue. That's the scary part. Wait a minute. This cat is the director of Biden's Economic Council. And he's the one supposed to, well, I guess, give counsel. And he hasn't got a clue. He's fudging this. This is what you'd say if you like overslept and you just ran to a class to take an oral exam, which I had to do when I was at Syracuse with 3 professors when I was getting my postgraduate. And if you didn't have the right answer, you tapped hands. This is right out of the movie Chicago. He's Richard Gere in the movie Chicago. He hasn't got a clue. You want to know why we have a problem? Because our administration, I think, Neil, my opinion, is loaded with people who are academics and have no idea of real life.
He has no
idea of real life.
He has no clue. And he talked about the pandemic. Didn't President Biden promise that he had the answers? And he brought these clowns together with him?
Well, you're right. This is terrible. And the interesting thing, okay, so now we're going to connect some dots. So we know that one of the root causes of inflation is energy. And look what they did to energy. So, Neil,
let's listen
Daniel.
To Daniel Turner, who's an energy expert here. Let's listen to what Daniel has to say.
Yeah, and these are not unanticipated consequences. Anyone who understands the way the economy works knows that when you tinker with it at the very fundamental levels, which is what they have done in my industry and energy from their very first day in office, they have put in multiple efforts and regulations and rules to curtail the production of energy in this country. So these consequences are not unintentional. This is exactly what is going to happen when you have these political policy decisions that are not based on science, fact, economics.
By the way,
there's a ship going by.
Ship.
Everyone wants to know, what is that? Is my TV? No, it's a ship going by from the soundbite. So that's what that is. So, what do you think about that, Neil? You ship stuff all the time.
Well, I mean, what he's saying is that political decisions were made that were completely political, not economic. And, let's go out there and decimate our energy industry, take us from a net energy producing country to someone who imports energy, dramatically increasing the cost of energy in our country. I mean, you don't have to go far. Just go down the street and look at your local gas station and look at those signs, $4 a gallon of gas. I mean, in some places of the country, $5 a gallon of gas. That's crazy. And so, I mean, you look at inflation. We talked about inflation at 7%. I mean, folks, this is the reason we have inflation, because there are political policies, not economic policies, but political policies to satisfy the radical left, which is a relatively very small part of the electorate, but a very vocal part of our electorate. And, they just got Biden. They got Biden all the way. I mean, he's hook, line, and sinker. And these radical policies, attacking energy and just about everything else, you're going to hear it throughout these experts that we have and people that we're referring back to. Regulation and rules, regulation and rules, regulation and rules. Decimate the fossil fuel industry. It's a political thing through regulation and rules. You're going to hear that in trucking. You're going to hear it everywhere. That's why we have this inflation.
And what people don't understand, and you will, maybe we'll hear a little bit from Pat LaFrida, who's a owner of one of the largest meat packers plants in the country, is that energy, fossil fuels, play a game in raising animals, because it goes into fertilizer, it goes into raising crops, and it goes into feed. And as a result of that being more expensive, if they can get it, then that raises the price of raising cattle and creating oats and barley and all this other stuff that they need to make products for the United States. So everything becomes more expensive from that basic thing. Listen, oil was about $47 a barrel when Trump was leaving. This week it hit 82. That's a lot. That's a big difference.
Let's listen real quick, because you brought it up. We don't want to leave until we hear this. Pat LaFrida, Pat LaFrida owns Pat LaFrida Meat Packers, one of the largest in the country, and this is what he had to say.
The USDA has just published what it's going to cost to transport all products, meat products, produce, from the West Coast to the East Coast, or from the center of the country towards the East Coast, and that's another 14% increase. A lot of that has to do with regulation on what it takes to get a CDL license, to find drivers that will transport this product. For the first time in history, it will cost more money for the transportation of, say, cantaloupes to the East Coast than what the cantaloupes are actually worth.
That's amazing.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So the freight of cantaloupes, coming, across the country costs more than the product themselves. And that's, folks, why we got inflation. Hey, we got Ken Rusk coming on, who's a Wall Street Journal best-selling author. His latest book, Blue Collar Cash. You're going to listen to this. It's very, very important. We've been talking about this a lot. These blue-collar jobs are very good jobs in many, many cases. Stay with us.
Promoting American industry. This is Made in America with Neil Asbury and Rich Rothman.
Welcome back to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. So, Rich, we just talked earlier about the Great Resignation. Went over 4 million people leaving the workforce.
That's an amazing,
and where did they go?
Statement. The Great Resignation.
The Great Resignation. Where did these people go? Because we need them. I mean, look, there's so many companies that need people. And hey, look, we found that some of them have started their own businesses, and some have, about a third, we believe, have become entrepreneurs, which is a good thing. But hey, look, Rich, we've done a lot of shows about vocational training and as a manufacturer myself, owning all this big machinery, these CNC machines, they're very sophisticated machines. I mean, we pay really good money and benefits for these jobs. I mean, these are really good jobs, and they're technical too. And you really got to know what you're doing. And there's a lot of advancement. And there's a lot of training opportunities. Manufacturing jobs are not what they used to be. I mean, they're very different. Technology and what you utilize and what you get to learn. But that's just one area. Carpenters, plumbers. I mean, just machine operators. Just so many different things. And I think liberal arts degrees today. Well, you've talked a lot about that, Rich. Many of them worthless. And what you got? How much debt? And then you go out in life, behind $100,000 of debt, if not more.
Well, think for a second. One of the largest, the first $3 trillion company in the United States, Apple, actually in the world, was founded originally by Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs did not get a college degree. Steve Jobs was just bloody brilliant. His buddy, who founded Microsoft, Gates, he didn't finish his college degree either. These are guys who just didn't do that. But the point of the matter is that the world has changed incredibly so over the last few decades. And the whole mantra when I was a kid and I was young, if you didn't go to college, you're going to amount to nothing. Your relatives would come over, celebrate Christmas. And by the way, you better study and go to college because you're going to amount to nothing. You're going to wear the sweater I'm giving you for Christmas for the rest of your life. And that's just not the way it is. And that's not the real world. And so when we listen to, and we're going to be talking to our guest in just a minute, Ken Rusk, the idea that education, college is not for everybody. It has nothing to do with intelligence. It has to do with what you want to do for the 2, 3, 4, or sometimes 7 years. In my case, it was, I don't want to think about it, it's a lot of years. But there's a whole life out there, and an enormously successful life that I think that we're going to talk about right now with Ken.
Well, Ken, it's Rich, as you said, he's found great success as a blue-collar worker, and he's also found great success as an author. He's a Wall Street Journal best-selling author, Ken Rusk, and his book is entitled Blue Collar Cash. Love your work, secure your future, and find your happiness. Ken, welcome to Made in America.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me.
So tell us, why is college, and you're talking here with Dr. Rich Rothman, myself an honorary doctorate as well. Why is college not a prerequisite for a successful life?
Well, I think the problem is that it's one of about 4 or 5 paths, but yet we've made it lately the only path. There's 167 million people to be considered fully employed in the United States today. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which I did a lot of research for the book, about 70 million of those people do something with their hands. So that's roughly half the people in the country are doing something with their hands. So if we attempt to put all 167 million kids of our future into college, where are we going to supply the other side? I mean, we are so oversupplying right now these bland business degrees and these liberal arts degrees, and we're undersupplying contractors and, carpenters, plumbers, welders, electricians. And that supply and demand imbalance is really coming back to hurt us right now. But if you're someone who's willing to work with your hands and willing to get into that side of the workforce, there is a golden opportunity for you to take advantage of this real severe shortage that we're facing right now.
Well, it's interesting, and this is so great. Mike Rowe, who everyone knows Mike Rowe. You know his voice because he's got one of the best voices on TV. He has narration, everything about, how the universe works. That's Mike Rowe. Mike Rowe's been to Saturn because I saw him. He was doing. All right, Mike Rowe made his name. I got Jake with that. Mike Rowe made his name with his first job, Dirty Jobs. That was his first big hit on Discovery Channel. A huge, huge success, which talked about jobs that the average American 25 years ago said, I'm not doing that. I got to get my degree. And then you're going to go out and you're going to live in your parents' basement. He did great on that. He's back with another show right now, which is exciting, called How America Works. So it's like the next generation. And it's all about the things that Americans do and can do to, A, build this country, and at the same time, they're doing great. And that's what Mike Rowe really talks about. He takes the myth and completely blows it apart. Isn't that right?
Yeah, the word blue collar and white collar by itself, there's a stigma attached to it. And I think that probably began a long time ago when, the fancy businessmen walked around with those snap-on, big, thick, white starch collars. And the blue-collar workers, they bought dungarees and Levi's, and they were blue. And that's kind of how those names originally came. And, back then, that might have been something to be looked down upon if you were, slaving on a highway or whatever you were doing. But man, I got to tell you, in this day and age, with the severe shortage and the imbalance that we have, if you're not taking at least a look at one of the other 4 or 5 paths to success, you are really cutting yourself short because, I know people that have gone out and got these really bland business degrees and they got really good at like beer pong through college, but that's not going to get you very far when you come out the other side and you don't have a specific job to go after and just a pile of debt staring at you.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. We got about very, very quick. We got about 20 seconds. What do you believe is the immediate economic benefits for people, young people specifically, in blue collar work? What should they be thinking about?
They absolutely need to be thinking about a few things. Number one, you control your own input, you control your own output, you control your time, you control your schedule, you control your financial scenario, and in many times you control your freedom. So you really need to take a look at that because those are not things you can always get from the 15th floor in some cubicle.
Very, very good. Hey, and I'm surprised that, the woke crowd hasn't yet determined that blue collar and white collar is racist.
Oh, it's coming.
It's coming.
Of course it's coming. Except the guys who come to my house and fixing, the electricians and plumbers, I got to tell you, they're making a fortune. This is not inexpensive work.
Hey,
there's a lot of six-figure degrees out there. There's a lot of people in our town, Toledo, Ohio, who are making 6 figures doing carpentry, plumbing, electrician, and welding.
No
and
kidding.
That wasn't the case in the old days. Absolutely.
Yeah. And God bless them for that.
Exactly.
God bless them for that. Ken Rusk, Wall Street Journal best-selling author, Blue Collar Cash. Ken, thanks for being on the show.
Appreciate you having me. Have a great day, guys.
Coming up, Dr. Rich and I still have a lot more to go over. Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. So, Rich, there's a governor in this country that's really standing out. I mean, in a good way, in a very good way. Yeah. Now, there are governors that are standing out in a bad way.
Yeah, pick the state.
Yeah. And they all happen to...
Karnak says, I can do this.
Yeah, they all happen to be blue states, too,
yeah, that's right.
But, being in Florida, we're a national show, but we do broadcast out of Florida, actually out of Washington by way of Florida. And, we get to see a lot of people down in South Florida, and I have a home in the Keys, and I'm there, and we see a lot of people coming down here. And I've heard from a lot of people from around the country about how impressed they are with Governor DeSantis, and I've talked to people who sold businesses and said, look, we just packed up, and we had a pizza restaurant, an Italian restaurant up in Chicago, and we just can't make it there anymore. So we had it for 40 years. It's been in the family 40 years. We packed up everything and we moved to Sarasota. We just went to Florida. We just drove to Florida.
Well, that's a good thing for Sarasota because Chicago's got great pizza. You cannot get Chicago-style pizza.
Florida is booming. I mean, for all across the economy.
100%.
And I was talking to someone who just moved down here from Georgia. And they say, "Oh, we love Governor DeSantis. He is so incredible. I hope he doesn't run for president. I hope he doesn't run for president." Why? Because they want him to be in Florida. We want Florida. They want Florida. They come from other states to be here, and they don't want it to change. They want Florida to stay the way it is. I think this guy's going to get reelected by like such a wave. I mean, he's going to have such a success. It's just they love Governor DeSantis in Florida.
Well, Neil, you and I are very blessed to be in the state, having gone through the pandemic for the last 2 years, and now we're in an endemic. Let's be clear on that. We're moving on a little bit. But we've had a governor that said, I am not going to impinge upon the rights of the individual freedoms of citizens of the state of Florida. I respect the Constitution. I respect their ability to understand what freedom is all about. And we have thrived. Now, granted, in the first few weeks and months of the pandemic, we weren't quite sure, what was happening with it. But once we got a fix on all of this, you notice that our governor opened up the state and said, we're going to do what we have to do. He did brilliant work with the seniors and the senior citizen homes and took care of those people right away. He set up testing throughout the state of Florida. When the vaccines became, en masse for the state, he set them up in such a great distribution system, first by the state, and then he branched out into CVS and Walgreens and the other stores like Walmart and Publix, of course, which is around the corner from every major community. And he really, we had a great vaccination program going forward. And he did the same thing with the monoclonals and the therapeutics. He has been so smart. But you know what, Neil, that I really respect about him? He did not marginalize any worker. He did not marginalize any owner of a company, saying, you're not worthy of staying in business, whereas that store is worthy of staying. He didn't play that game. He let the small to mid-sized companies, once we understood what was going on and how to take care of everyone, thrive. And it was a great opportunity. We should listen to him.
Yeah, let's listen. This guy's driving the woke crowd, the state media, the mouthpiece of the Democrat Party, our mainstream media. He's driving these people nuts.
Yeah.
So therefore,
because he's so successful,
he must be doing something well.
Exactly.
I mean, you got to love the guy because he's really got these guys going bananas because they don't know how to compete with this guy. Let's listen to the State of the State address that he just recently gave in Florida, Governor DeSantis.
Together, we have made Florida the freest state in these United States. In Florida, we have protected the right of our citizens to earn a living, provided our businesses with the ability to prosper, fought back against unconstitutional federal mandates, and ensured our kids have the opportunity to thrive. Florida has stood strong as the rock of freedom, and it is upon this rock that we must build Florida's future. To help alleviate this burden for Florida families, I'm proposing a $1 billion gas tax holiday to help reduce prices at the pump. If Washington, D.C. won't change course, then we have a responsibility to step up on behalf of our Floridians.
Rich, I mean, that's an incredible
says it all, doesn't it?
But I think there are literally tens and tens of millions of Americans right now, hundreds of million Americans right now, wishing and hoping that we will be substituting soon the United States for Florida in that speech. The United States is the freest country in the world. This United States respects your right to work. And we're not going to put all these rules and regulations on you in the United States because you have a right to your freedom. You have a right to your dreams.
It's called America First.
Well, let me tell you, this guy's good. He is really good. Rich, we're going to be back just in a second. Stay with us. We still got a lot more to talk about. Welcome back to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. So, Rich, Fortunately, it seems like this Build Back Broke or Build Back
Better.
Better. Well, cannot, Build Back Better. Wow. But Build Back Broke is dead. And, which was going to be somewhere around 5 trillion to 6 trillion. Then it was 3.5 trillion.
It was all over the place.
Now it's 1.75 trillion, but it wasn't really 1.75 trillion. It was really 3.5 trillion or 4 trillion or 5 trillion because of the accounting tricks.
Right. No, they scored it incorrectly.
They took 10 years of revenue and only 3 years of the expenses.
Exactly.
Man, I wish I could run my company that way.
Let's call the new man
and get lending and from our financial institution. They would laugh me out of the bank if I tried to present that kind of nonsense. Absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, it does seem like for the moment that's dead. And based on some of these things that's happened recently with the Supreme Court knocking down the mandate for OSHA,
right,
the 100 employees, we talked about it earlier today.
Helps jobs.
We see that now is behind us. Killing the filibuster doesn't look like that's going to happen. Thank God, because of a lot of the other sort of policies that Biden was going to try to get rammed down our throats. That looks like it's dead. But who knows? I mean, this thing could come back again. So let's listen to what Larry Kudlow had to say about this massive spending bill.
We didn't need the $2 trillion last winter, and we don't need another $5 trillion now. It's bad enough inflation is running at 7% and likely to move higher. Even Fed head Jay Powell today finally acknowledged that the emergency is over and the economy no longer needs aggressive stimulus.
So there you go. I mean, right now it's dead, but look, Pelosi and Schumer and
they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop.
They keep coming back to, we're going to bring it back. We're going to bring it back. We're going to bring it back.
Because, Neil, this is their last chance. They know they're going to get knocked out come this November, the next midterm election. And they have just a handful of months to jam through as much as they. Listen, they've got to be desperate if they're saying, Hillary Clinton may not be the bad idea. She's a comeback kid. I mean, she failed twice. She's been very bitter. She only lied about the Russian thing. She paid for it. But you know what? She could do it. You know what one of them said? Well, at least she's younger than Joe. Well, Christ, everyone's younger than Joe. I'm even younger than Joe.
Well, Thomas Friedman from the New York Times have even suggested...
He's younger than Joe.
He's even suggested this last week that it should be Biden and Liz Cheney. I mean, they are really, really...
They don't know what they're doing anymore.
Grabbing at straws. I mean, here you go. I got to tell you, I mean, here they're the incumbents. They should be, looking what happens in 2028. They should be way down the road now. I mean, their guy's going to be in there for the next 7 years. No, I mean... They don't even know if he's going to be in there for the next year. Already trying to figure out a way to get him out in 2024.
Why did Stacey Abrams not show up when he came to Georgia the other day to give a speech? And it was like a scheduling conflict. You're going to have a scheduling conflict with the president of the United States? Gosh,
with a voting rights bill.
I had the wrong time in my iPhone. Are you kidding me? That's not going to happen. She did not want to be with a guy who has an approval rating of 33% as of this week from Quinnipiac. 33%, Neil.
Well, let's give the last word today to our friend Newt Gingrich.
Look, I think the best phrase is simple. It ain't working. And you go stand at a gas station and watch people putting gas in, it ain't working. You go to a grocery store, look at the price of beef, it ain't working. You go look at the 120 ships sitting off of Long Beach, it ain't working. You go down to the border, the mayor of Yuma declares an emergency because there's a 2,500% increase in the number of people coming across the border in his town. It ain't working. I think if the Republicans just run on the graces, this ain't working, they'll probably win a landslide of historic proportion in both the House and the Senate.
Well, I mean,
does that sum it up?
He talked about energy. He talked about food prices, all the things that we talked about today. It ain't working.
Everything that touches all Americans, you can easily say, it ain't working. It's not working. Neil, it's not. I mean, I look every week. I'm in Publix and I go shopping because I love talking to the cash register ladies after all these years, and it is looking dire. They still don't have. Since we started talking about this, I still cannot get the cookies I want. I cannot get Lorna Doones. I am really freaking out about that. I don't care about everything else. If I can't have Lorna Doones, and by the way, my dog loves them, so he's suffering. It's not right, you know. But the meat's bad. I mean, they had meat there was like, you know, a fortune. And guys are saying, not me. I'm not buying it. And they're not.
Well, Rich, unfortunately, we're out of time. But Newt said it right. It ain't working. We're going to have a lot more to cover in our shows coming up. We got some really, really great guests. Not going to tell you who, but I got to tell you, we got some great people lined up to come on. You're going to be really, really excited. Please stay with us. Tune in with us here at Made in America, where Rich and I never stop fighting for your jobs.